أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Are you Eric Adams? Yeah, you support the genocide in Palestine. There are homeless people all over New York. You're always partying. You don't actually care about the citizens of New York. Why are you even in Miami? You know there are people being arrested there. People are homeless in New York. People cannot afford food. You keep cutting the education budget so that you can fund the police. That's all you care about, funding the police. Everything is underfunded because of you.
I'm trying to get holding the line.
All right, guys. So on this continuation of the coverage of the Democrat Civil War, the Victimhood Olympics that is currently taking place and has essentially come to its head when it comes to these protests that are happening at these woke colleges and universities, we have to talk about a video that is going viral. A video that I think speaks volumes about our education system, particularly when it comes to academia and these woke college institutions, okay, that are supposed to be teaching kids how to think, okay, not necessarily what to think, but how to think, okay, critical thinking skills. However, it has become apparent that that's not what's happening, okay? Our colleges and universities have become indoctrination camps that literally teach kids how to be NPCs, aka what to think, okay, and not to think about anything that goes against the woke agenda, which is part of the reason why they're in this position where they're collapsing under the weight of the victimhood coalition falling apart, because it turns out that intersectionality is only as strong as the opposition to the white Christian conservative male. And when you take the white Christian conservative male out of the equation, right, when he's no longer a factor, it turns out that intersectionality falls apart, which is essentially what is happening here with this Israeli-Palestinian protest, in which you have people who normally would be on the same team, okay? You have people that, you know, historically have claimed victimhood to say, hey, you know, I'm a victim and I've been oppressed and all this. And we must all stand together. We're all on the same team because the conservatives and Republicans are the cause of it, right? Because they are anti-Semitic, anti-black racist, they are anti-Latinx, they're Islamophobic, they're transphobic, they're homophobic, okay? So we all have to stay together, even though we have nothing in common, to go against the Republicans and conservatives, right? Then they're saying, hey, you know what? We don't really get along. We're actually diametrically opposed to each other's own interests, because you have one group that says, hey, I support Israel because Jews have been historically oppressed and marginalized and persecuted. And I believe that Israel has the right to exist and defend themselves from threats. This is why they support Israel. And then you have the other side saying, hey, I support Palestine because the Israelis are actually the oppressors, right? They are oppressing the Palestinians. The Palestinians are losing innocent lives. And we identify with the Palestinians because we feel like they are the biggest victim in this situation. That is as far as the critical thinking goes, right? For the most part, when it comes to this issue, okay? And you know this because when some of these woke activists get confronted on why are you protesting? Why are you out here and you so passionate about this issue? You must be an expert, right? You must know a lot about this issue in order to be so passionate about it. Why are you out here protesting? Some students apparently can't answer the question, right? They go blank, okay? They get a case of the Joe Biden and they admit that, hey, maybe, just maybe, despite going to school to get this $60, $70, $80, $90,000 a year Ivy League degree, maybe I need to actually educate myself on exactly why am I out here protesting, which is exactly what happened at the NYU protest, in which you had a couple of woke activists who were there protesting, were confronted on, okay, why are you here? They didn't know. Take a look.
And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU is doing.
Is there something that NYU is doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU is doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free.
I wish I was more educated. I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support, so I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
Yeah, so I think that video is a perfect encapsulation of the problems with our modern education system, especially when it comes to colleges and universities. Okay, these two individuals clearly and obviously were not aware of why they're protesting at NYU. What is the protest about? And why are you there in support? They don't even know, but yet they're there. All they know is that, well, it's supposed to be in support of Palestine. Okay, but why exactly are you protesting NYU? What is NYU's role? Like, what actual outcome are you seeking from your protest? Well, I don't know. I guess I should be more educated, right? I need to educate myself. And it's like, wow, this is what an Ivy League degree gets you, right? Imagine spending 80, 90, maybe even 100 grand a year to go to an elite school, and these kids aren't even capable of doing just the basic thought process, critical thinking of, hey, let me actually find out exactly why they're protesting, like what is actually going on, what is the outcome that is being sought before I actually show up and protest, before I potentially get myself arrested, because that's what's happening. If you show up and you protest, there's a decent chance that you can be arrested. So you're risking getting arrested to show up to a protest, and you don't know why you're there or what is the stated objective, right? What are you actually trying to get out of the protest? Okay, what are you actually really trying to change? None of these people know. This is just classic NPC behavior that these kids have learned in college, right? This is what they've learned at their academic institution. They haven't learned how to critically think. They've learned what to think. Oh, well, what I know is that they're protesting in support of Palestine, so therefore I need to go. Even though you don't really know what the school that you're protesting is doing that you supposedly don't support. Again, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. But again, it is par for the course when it comes to these individuals. It really is, because a lot of them really have no clue. They're just doing what they're told to do. Okay. They just believe what they're told that they're supposed to believe, which is that, hey, we have to identify with other so-called people of color that are oppressed, right? And this is why you get interviews like this interview that I have talked about in the past before with AOC, where she's asked just a very basic question about the occupation of Palestine and Gaza by the Israelis, and she can't even elaborate on the issue while admitting that, hey, I'm not really an expert in this issue that I'm supposed to be so passionate about.
But I am, of course, the dynamic there in terms of geopolitics and the war in the Middle East is very different than people expressing their First Amendment right to protest.
Well, yes, but I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that to me is just where I tend to come from on this issue.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
Yeah, so straight NPC behavior, right? I really don't get it. I really don't understand it. Again, I definitely understand why somebody may make the argument that, hey, you know, I feel like what's happening in Gaza is not right, right? I get that. I totally understand that. When innocent lives are lost, whether that is Israelis or Palestinians, I totally understand why people would come to an opinion and say, hey, I think it's wrong. But when the passion gets to the point where, again, you're out in the streets and you are prioritizing a foreign conflict over what's actually going on in this country, when this is something that you're out here using very heavy terms to describe, like the G word, to say what's going on, you better actually know what you're talking about, right? You better actually really be able to answer a basic question like, what are you referring to when you talk about the Israeli occupation of Palestine, and can you expand on that, right? That is a very basic thing that AOC should know, but she doesn't know because she hasn't actually critically thought about the issue. She hasn't really learned that much about the issue. She's just coming out here and saying what she believes she should say based off what the left, right, her handlers tell her, hey, this is what you should say. Again, classic NPC behavior. And you know that AOC is an NPC because when asked about the conflict between the far left and voting for Joe Biden, who seems to not be doing enough for the far left in regards to forcing Israel to issue a ceasefire, AOC gives another NPC answer where she tries to mental gymnastics her way through trying to justify why these people should vote for Joe Biden instead of sit it out because, you know, Orange man bad, right? Orange man is worse than Joe Biden. Therefore, you should vote for Joe Biden, which again is an NPC answer. Take a look.
What do you say to a young progressive or an Arab American who says to you, I just can't vote for Biden again after what he's enabled in Gaza? What do you say to them?
I mean, I think everyone comes to this prospect and this conversation with a different history, different background, what they bring. You know, for an individual Palestinian American that has had their family killed, there is nothing, I mean, I am not here to lecture anyone. I also think that this election is more, in my personal view, I believe this election is about more than the president. And also, it's not just one election that's happening. We're having hundreds of elections.
Yes.
The balance of Congress, the balance of the House, the balance of the Senate, and the presidency. And I have a vested interest in protecting democracy, not just here domestically, but globally. And it isn't, I truly do not believe this as a lesser of two evils type of situation. I think about what conditions do I want to be organizing under in the next 4 years.
Yeah.
We can look at both of these individuals oppositionally as well, depending on what issue you have. But I would rather, even in places of stark disagreement, I would rather be organizing under the conditions of Biden as an opponent on an issue than Trump, who is not, he seeks to dismantle American democracy. And I am taking that personally very seriously because we will not be able to organize for any movement towards anything if we are facing the jailing of dissidents. I mean, this is the kind of authoritarianism that he threatens. And we have to take it seriously.
Wow. That interview, that answer should be the end of AOC's career, right? If the left has the cojones that they act like they have, okay, in regards to holding politicians accountable, that interview between AOC and Mehdi Hasan should be the end of AOC's career. And there's multiple reasons why. I mean, first and foremost, again, you see the NPC answer. Well, Trump is a threat to democracy. Okay. And it's like, again, this is just classic Democrat Party talking points. Okay. Orange man bad. So therefore, that's why you should vote for Joe Biden. Even though you could argue that Trump is probably more pro-Israel than Biden. But if Biden Democrats aren't showing a willingness to actually really do what they got to do to force Netanyahu to issue a ceasefire, effectively, what is the difference? Right? There is no difference. So now, if you're going to get the same outcome with Trump and Biden on this issue, now the vote has to be based off other things. Like, okay, well, what's going on in this country? That's what I think people should be voting based off of anyways, right? Because I really don't think that the policy is going to be any different, whether it's Trump or Biden in the White House. Who knows? I have no clue. Trump is a wild card. Maybe Trump is more likely to try to broker some type of peace than Biden. But regardless, now you have to look at domestic policy. And when you look at domestic policy, it's not even close. Trump is much better than Biden. This is why Biden's approval ratings are in the tank. This is why Trump is leading in the polls. So again, AOC knows she can't argue on those grounds, so that's why she jumps to well, Trump's a threat to democracy. Well, it turns out that the far left don't give a damn about democracy, more so than they care about what's going on overseas, right? Because they've been radicalized to care about that, right? The biggest thing for them is, well, we have to stand with the oppressed, okay? So the next thing that AOC said, again, is why I think that if I was a leftist, I'd be like, why the hell do we vote for AOC? Because she briefly mentioned that, well, Trump is a threat to democracy. We may have to deal with the jailing of dissidents, right? AKA political opponents. And that's fascinating because first and foremost, right now, that is what's happening with the Biden administration. The Biden administration is locking up and jailing their political opponents. I mean, if you look at the non-violent January 6th protesters or the pro-life activists or the parents that are concerned about the indoctrination being pushed on kids in school, yeah, the Biden administration has went after those people, his political opponents. But it's not just people on the right, it's also the far left activists as well too. They're being arrested right now for politically dissenting from the Biden administration. That's what's happening. And you know that to be the case because if those activists were protesting some right-winger on a college campus and they were boohoo whining and crying and saying all types of crazy stuff, issuing threats of violence, nobody would give a damn. Nobody would care. They wouldn't be arrested. They're only being arrested. They're only being punished because they're standing up to the Biden administration. Again, if they were standing up to the Republicans or, again, some conservative activists or some conservative speaker on a college campus, nobody would care. There would be no arrest. It would be free game. They say this is free speech, right? And if you're against it, then you're against free speech. But if you stand up against the Biden administration, though, whether you're on the right or the left, oh, well, they're going to throw you in jail, right? They're going to arrest you. They're actually going to do something about it. It's amazing how AOC doesn't even realize that. The people that she claims that she's supposed to be representing and that she supports, she doesn't even realize that the Biden administration is arresting them for political dissent. We know it's political. And some people may say, well, they agree because they're making violent threats. I'm just saying that the standard here is not the same. You know it's political because there's a double standard. Conservatives never get this type of protection when it comes to all of the harassment, hate, and vitriol that they get when they go on college campuses and speak. And conservatives also never get the same type of leash that the far left activists are getting when it comes to the ability to protest. Okay, if conservatives protest, oh man, you got the FBI there, the police are there, they're arrested immediately, right? There is zero tolerance for conservative free speech and protest, right? But when it comes to the left, there has to be a debate, okay? When it comes to the left, though, again, if you're protesting the right, it's fine. It's great, fair game. But if the left is protesting the left, oh, well, we need to debate about it. And because you're standing against our agenda, we are going to eventually end up arresting you. Now people want to speak out against the extremism of the left. The extremism of the left is only a problem when it's a problem for Democrats, when it's a problem for their agenda. In any other situation, when they're using it to, for example, blame Trump for black people being shot in the street by white police officers, aka the BLM riots. Oh, well, again, this is free speech, right? That's free speech. They didn't care when these people were out in the middle of a pandemic, when they was telling everybody that, hey, being out in the streets, being outside in these large gatherings are super spreader events. It was only a super spreader event if the right was doing it. If the right was doing it, if conservative was doing it, oh, it's super spreader. The left doing it, oh, well, that's social justice. And if you disagree with it, then you're racist, okay? Because racism is a public health crisis. This is the arguments they were making, guys. The double standards here are absolutely amazing. It is clearly and obviously political, 100%. So when AOC comes out here and talks about how, oh, well, I'm afraid of Trump being elected because he might lock up and arrest political dissidents, I'm like, dude, that's what's happening right now. Biden's doing that to the right and to the left. Again, you're just too stupid to realize it. But again, you know, this is how NPCs think. Coming to that conclusion actually requires some type of critical thinking, which is something that AOC and a lot of these woke activists lack. So, hey, at the end of the day, maybe you can't really blame them, okay? Our academic institutions that are supposed to teach our kids how to think have failed to do so. And as a result, this is the state of the country. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.